Welcome, all my fellow Washington brethren and sisters. I am your man and resident Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report. Practice today, the first practice post preseason game number 1 versus the New England Patriots. A lot of takeaways from practice today. Some house cleaning to do. I had a chance to watch the game over again and actually watch players specifically. So I'm going to give you some tidbits there. So much to get to. I don't want to delay. Let's get straight to the proceedings this evening. Let's start with the house cleaning first. At practice today, Curtis Samuel activated off of the PUP list. Now, obviously not participating in team drills quite yet, but getting acclimated back to the speed of the game, kind of similar to what they did with Matthew Ioannidis. You're going to see him kind of take his time. They're going to bring him along slowly. They're going to get his conditioning up. So I don't expect him to practice maybe this entire week, because obviously it's going to be a shorter work week because there's a game on Friday, so there won't be any practice on Thursday more likely than not. Maybe a walkthrough since they don't have to travel. They'll be at home. But I don't expect him to play in this game. Rivera said after practice, Samuel is a guy that doesn't need a ton of preseason work to be up to speed with this offense. I think he still wants to see him at some point, maybe in week 3 versus Baltimore in the preseason finale. But nonetheless, he's back at practice. More importantly, off the PUP list, which means he's healthy now. Now it's just about getting him back up to football shape. So that's great news because we've been talking about that. And I told you I wasn't worried yet, and I told you I wouldn't be worried until we got to the end of the preseason and he was still on the PUP list. He's not on the PUP list anymore. So all of that for me has been quelled. I told you if Ron's not worried about him fitting into this offense and needing reps, then neither am I. I'm only concerned when they're concerned. They're not concerned, then neither am I. So he's healthy. That's the only thing I was worried about is his health. He's healthy. I got no qualms. So that's good news. Along with that roster move, however, of pulling Curtis Samuel off the PUP list. And again, when you make a move like that, you have corresponding moves that go with them. Obviously, Washington has to make their first round of cuts. Every single team around the league has to trim their roster from 90 down to 85. And so Washington took the first steps towards doing that. They got rid of 3 players today, 2 very notable ones. Lamar Miller, running back. I told you he wasn't going to make the team. A lot of you were going really crazy early in camp. Oh my God, Lamar Miller's having a great camp. I'm like, you do know Lamar Miller's 30, right? You do understand he has no business being on this roster because he does not fit in the time frame that we're working with. I told you it's all young guys. So that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I wasn't surprised he was cut. Maybe this early, maybe, but he wasn't going to make the team. And I had already told you guys that from the jump. And the one that really moved some people, which wasn't that big of a surprise to me, especially after seeing the depth chart, was Kelvin Harman. Harmon was released, and I told you guys back in like May, this is not Ron's guy. He did not draft Kelvin Harman. Harman was a guy he inherited. And I told you last year was so pivotal for guys that Ron didn't draft because he didn't know any of these guys when he got here. So his biggest thing was, I got to get to know these players to figure out who are the guys that are key cogs and players that we're going to move forward with as we continue to build this thing the right way and continue to change the culture. And not saying that Kelvin Harmon's a bad player or a bad guy. None of those things. He's a good dude, reportedly great in the locker room, hard worker, does everything the right way. But he got hurt last year. That really hurt him because there's so many guys they got to take a look at last year. And in the grand scheme of things, that wasn't Ron's guy. They got other guys that they like more. And Harmon, for all intents and purposes, he was just a guy in their minds. We got plenty of guys that we feel like can provide what he can provide and also give us more. So, unfortunately, Harmon did not make the first round of cuts. He's gone. And so I told you wide receiver is going to be one of the most intriguing positions, and I got more on that in practice today. We'll talk more about the wide receiver position, but Kelvin Harman gone. For those of you who were Kelvin Harman stands out there, I told you guys to brace yourself because I didn't think he was going to make the football team. And there will be more, obviously. Not 10 receivers aren't making the team, so there will be more cuts at wide receiver. And I'm starting to wrap my brain around who's going to make this team. And, I thought the first preseason game and the way that the playing time was divvied up was very, very eye-opening for me at least. And again, I think preseason game number 2 is going to really confirm some of the thoughts that I'm starting to formulate. But Harmon not getting in till damn near the fourth quarter told me all I needed to know. And I told you guys that on the post-game show, on overtime. Harmon getting in after AGG and after Isaiah Wright pretty much confirms the depth chart, which means he's not making his football team. So they went ahead and had a mercy kill. And they just said, all right, we're going to go ahead and dead this. This guy didn't have a chance to make the football team. So that one was big for some of you, but a lot of us already saw the writing on the wall, especially after the depth chart was released. Tamrick Hemingway, a guy that we talked about at the tight end position, running with the twos, got a lot of reps with the twos in the first preseason game against New England, suffered a concussion and is now in concussion protocol. That is not good news for Tamrick Hemingway, especially if he plans on trying to make this football team. He could easily go from slotted number 2 on the depth chart to not making this football team at all, depending on how long. And again, he can't control having a concussion and being in the protocol. He can't control, that happening. It's football. These things take place. But Sammy Reyes, again, went back and watched the film. I was hard on him because I only saw one play. I told you, these are the things that can happen when you don't watch everything. And that's why sometimes I'm hesitant to draw conclusions on players without having all of the information, especially when talking about film. If you're watching film on players and you just pick out 3 games and they played in 47 college games and you decide to pick out 3, you may pick out 2 of their worst games and you think this guy stinks. He can't block, he can't do this, he can't do that. Well, you picked out 2 of the worst games to assess that particular aspect of their game. Same thing with a particular game. If you pick out 1 or 2 plays and they were both horrible reps, you're going to think to yourself, this guy stinks. This guy's not ready. And I saw 1 rep of him trying to block, and it was the worst block attempt he had all night. And it just happened to be the one time I actually was focusing in on him as a blocker. And I said, wow, that was really bad. He's not ready. And then you couple that with the double catches, and you're like, yeah, he's got a ways to go. But then you have to take a lot of things into consideration. This was the man's first football game, and I think I said that at least 5 or 6 times. His first football game in his life ever. Didn't play Pop Warner. He didn't play as a kid. He didn't play over in Chile. He never played football. Didn't play in high school. He always was focused on basketball. First time playing any kind of organized football. Really, football, period. But organized football. So, yeah, there were jitters. Yeah, he was nervous. Of course. Who wouldn't be in that situation? So, the double catches, I think this guy can catch. And I saw him blocking. Okay. And he was putting some guys' dick in the dirt, man. He was really getting after it on some of these plays. So Rivera said after the game, he might be the most physical player on the team. Think about that. Let that resonate for a second. Listen to what he's saying. And then take into consideration that today, because there was no Tamrick Hemingway, and coupled with what they saw on film, Sammy Reyes was getting reps with the second team offense. So you see where this is going, right? We already know John Bates and Logan Thomas are on the squad. Now Sammy Reyes is getting reps with the second team. Now, that could be out of necessity. There is no Tamrick Hemingway. But not only did he leapfrog Tamrick Hemingway, who wasn't, active because of the concussion, but he's also in front of Ricky Seals-Jones. So I'm just saying, this thing is starting to teeter in the direction of Sammy Reyes having a much better shot than I thought just a week ago. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And so that kind of is a perfect segue into my takeaways from the game. So I had a chance to go back and watch and really focus in on individual players and what they were doing on all of their reps while in the game. I think that's important because it's easy to get caught up. Like I told you about, one of the plays I saw, the first throw of the game, which was the deep dig to Terry, which was a beautiful connection from Fitz to Terry McLaurin. And I told you that I watched Sam Cosmi on that play, and he got blown up, and he was going to fall down if not for running back Antonio Gibson, who happened to just bump him, which kept him on his feet and allowed him to stay in a rep, push that guy around the pocket, allow Fitz to step up and deliver the dart. So if I just go off of that one play, I'm like, man, he was struggling. But I watched the entire game, and I watched all of his reps. He was really solid, man. There were a couple of plays, the one I just mentioned, where, and he said it himself, I was really nervous coming out there on that first possession. I needed to settle down, and he did after that. You could tell. But that first possession, I thought he was just in la-la land a bit. That first pass protection on the throw to Terry, I told you that wasn't a great rep. The next run is probably the best hit for Gibby the entire night. It's probably like an 8-yard run or so. And if Sam Cosmi on the backside of that thing, he's running through the hole because he pulls on that play. And he comes around, and there's nobody for him to block. And his head is on a swivel, but he doesn't find the defender that ultimately makes the tackle. That guy runs right by Sam Cosmi. If Cosmi just gets a piece of him, that run pops for every bit of 25, 30 yards. Seriously, it went for 8. Could have went for 25. But Cosmi was, I'm telling you, he was in space then, and he had to come down. His feet had to touch the ground. And once he got that first possession out of his system and got those jitters and butterflies out of his system and realized it's just ball. I'm just playing ball, okay? It's like I'm back at Texas, except the competition is much better. I think he settled down after that, and he was really, really solid in both the pass and run game. There are some things I'd like to see him clean up, including I think sometimes his head dips when he makes contact. Need to keep his head up, see what he's hitting, and make sure that he's not lunging forward with his head. But outside of that, I thought he was really good. Another takeaway. Eric Flowers, I didn't realize this watching the game live. He got first-team reps with the offense on the second drive. So Wes Schweitzer started the game at left guard on the first possession. The second possession, Ryan Fitzpatrick and the offense came back out onto the field, as you can recall, if you remember, and they drove it down the field, and they got into field goal range, and then Dustin Hopkins missed. That whole drive was Eric Flowers featured at left guard. So I have to go back and amend the statement that I made. This isn't double O worthy, but it's damn close because I was very definitive in my thought process that there was no competition at left guard. I stand corrected, okay? There is a competition at left guard, and that proves it that he got reps so early in the game. If Wes Schweitzer had all the first team reps and then Eric Flowers came in for the second team reps, okay, yeah, there's still a gap there. But it was 1-1. One possession for Wes Schweitzer, one possession for Eric Flowers. And I didn't think either one of those guys were dominant, to be honest with you. I've seen much better from Wes Schweitzer, and I thought Eric Flowers was okay. I didn't think he was great. But that's nor here nor there. The bigger takeaway is today at practice, Eric Flowers got the lion's share of reps at left guard with the first team offense. Every bit of 60 to 70% of the first team reps at guard, left guard specifically, was given to Flowers. Now, this was a theme of practice today. They were interchanging parts because Sheriff and I want to say Rouye were out with, and they were letting other guys play with the first team. And then those guys came in a little bit later in practice. So I think Ron is just trying to get other guys involved. He talked about wanting a lot of different players to have opportunities to get meaningful reps. So I think we're seeing a little bit of that. If you ask me, I still think Wes Schweitzer is your week 1 starter. But there is a competition. I was wrong. I stand corrected. And we're going to see who starts this next game. That'll be interesting to see if it's still Wes Schweitzer or if they give Eric Flowers an opportunity to start at left guard. I can tell you this. Eric Flowers is a big, big man, okay? And that doesn't necessarily translate to him, mauling dudes, but he's a big, big man. I'm still a Wes Schweitzer fan, but, there is a very big difference between the two in terms of size. Eric Flowers is a hulking individual for sure. John Bates did some really good things. Went back and watched. Thought he was really solid. A couple of reps in the run game where you're like, hey, he could have been a little bit better, a little bit more technically sound. But all in all, I thought he did a phenomenal job in his pass sets. Thought he did a really good job in the run game for the most part. And I can tell you this as well. I think he's going to be very serviceable in the pass game too. So, like what I saw out of John Bates, want to see more. I'm intrigued. Like what I saw out of, really, I liked what I saw out of the two tight ends that we're going to talk about here. We'll get to the other one here in a second. Jamin Davis. So, let me just say this about Jamin Davis, because a lot of you were really over the top, like almost to the point where I was getting upset. And I know that I can't get upset with you guys because this is how some of you are. And if I react to everything that you guys say and do, then I would find myself getting upset. And I know better than that. Okay? So a lot of you, though, are really doing too much with this Jamin Davis stuff right now. Like, seriously, just relax. Seriously, I'm not going to talk too much about this anymore because I'm going to find myself getting upset. And I don't need to, because sometimes some of your skulls are too thick. So I'm wasting my time talking to y'all because I've been preaching this for a very long time. When we drafted him, I said, you need patience with this kid. And this is the direct opposite of patience. When people are hitting me up and asking me, did we get this pick wrong? We should have taken Mac Jones. Did you watch him play in the game? Did you see the quarterback for the Bears, Justin Fields? We should have took him. We made a mistake, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, really? After one quarter of football, essentially, you've come to that determination that we made a mistake. Okay. I look at it like this. Say you work in an office environment. I'm talking about you out there. Put yourself in this position. You got your little cubicle. It's your first day. You go in the office. You got experience at this job. You've done this job before, but it's a brand new firm you're working for, and it's a big bump up in pay. Okay? The competition level is extremely higher. They're expecting a lot more from you than your last job. Okay? You're a little nervous your first day. You go in, you make a couple of clerical errors, all right? And one of your coworkers or one of the onlookers from another department goes up to your supervisor and says, hey, man, you got to get rid of Pete. The new guy, Pete, that started today, you got to get rid of him. And the supervisor says, oh, shit, did Pete do something crazy? So he tells you to come. He tells the guy to come into the office. We got to talk. Did Pete sexually harass somebody? Did Pete cuss out one of our potential clients? What did Pete do? Man, Pete was looking nervous. Caught him making a couple of mistakes. And the supervisor says, is that it? Man, if you don't get your ass out my damn office talking crazy, it's the first day on the job. What'd you expect? He'll settle in. That's how I feel about some of y'all. Like, y'all acting like this man has done something so wrong that he can't be good. There's no going back. Like, you've seen 3 seasons of this dude and he stinks. I'm done talking about it. I'm going to just tell you what I saw in film. It was a guy that was just thinking too much, which is what you expect. You watch some of these young players out here that had a great first game, like Xavin Collins. He gets it. He's played a ton of linebacker. He's hitting it downhill. And Jamin Davis will get there eventually. And I tell you guys this all the time. Everyone doesn't mature at the same rate. The game slows down for this guy faster than it does this guy. The game is still moving at an extremely fast rate of speed for Jamin Davis right now. And that's expected. Okay? It's the first preseason game. So I expect him to settle in and continue to get better and start to be able to go downhill and play with aggression. Right now, he's sitting back and letting the action come to him, and that's why he's not making any plays. And he won't until he starts to understand what's going on in front of him and read and go and get it. And that's not happening yet, and it will. I got confidence in it will. So I watched him and I said, he's just thinking too much. And I actually went back to my notes from the game and I cross-referenced it with the notes that I took when I watched it again. It's the same thing. He's thinking too much. That's it. It's all it is a processing issue right now. He's processing the game at a slower rate. They went play action fake on the one play I talked about during the overtime breakdown. And I said, man, He came up, a couple of false steps on play action fake. Then he tried to get back. He didn't get back fast enough. And right behind him, where he should have been, in front of the safety, behind the linebacker, was the receiver, Kendrick Bourne. Nice little delivery from Mac Jones. Completion. Shit happens. Okay? As he gets more and more comfortable, he may react to play action fake a little, but he won't take 2-3 steps up. He may come up one step and then get right back into that zone. And now that play, he's taking that away. He may turn and find that receiver and get underneath that route and take it away. He'll get there. I'm not worried. Neither should you. I thought he did some good things. You know, one play, they run a toss to the left. He does a great job of avoiding the offensive lineman who tries to push him. He bounces off of another guy and gets to the ball carrier. Now it's 7 yards up the field, but he did a tremendous job of sorting through the garbage and getting to the football. He's going to do some really good things. Just got to be patient. Dyami Brown's going to be a stud. All right, that is evident. I watched him in the game, and I said to myself, we got ourselves one here. The catch he made on his very first catch was a ball that was clearly behind him, thrown as Heineke threw across his body. It was back behind him. The defender was right there. He had to wrestle the ball away from the defender. That's a hell of a catch. He caught the slant and ran a little bit, had the step on the deep ball. I like what I saw out of him, and then I thought he was very competitive in the run game as well. So I think we got ourselves a stud here in Dyami Brown. Really excited about what he's going to do. And then the final thing with Sammis Reyes is more than just a practice squad project, is what I determined from watching the game. Yeah, the double catches are concerning, but you got to take a lot of things into consideration. This man's first game, he was nervous. He was a nervous wreck, and he even said it after practice today during his presser. Like, yeah, it was my first game, man. It was insane. He said he couldn't sleep after the game. He just watched film, and then he started replicating those reps over again and trying to recreate the play and then what he could have done better to be more successful. So he couldn't even sleep after the game. So that just tells you how much this guy was nervous and also dialed in at the same time. But sometimes you can want something so bad, you can squeeze so tight that you actually have it be counterproductive. So I'm glad he still caught both of those balls. They could have been drops, but he caught them. But he was so nervous. The guy can catch. I'm telling you, he can catch the football. So that was the first thing. And he was actually open on at least 2 or 3 more offerings that I thought he should have gotten the football, and they would have been nice chunk plays. But Steven Montez, and I told you, it's going to be really hard to assess these receivers until Kyle Allen is back. Speaking of which, Kyle Allen back at practice today. That's another one of our clerical issues that we needed to clean up, house cleaning. Great to have him back at practice because I want him playing against Cincinnati, because you can't really fairly assess these wide receivers with Steven Montez at quarterback because there are guys running open. You know, I watched Sammis Reyes get a free release up the field on a seam route, and Montez has got time in the pocket. I'm like, bro, what are you looking at? This man is screaming up the seam. Now, he's running towards the safety, but you got a chance to put it on him. Get it to him. And he checks it down to the running back in the flats. And I'm like, wow, you're turning down 16 for 3, 4 in the flats? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So we can't fairly assess these receivers and these tight ends and skill guys until we get a quarterback that truly understands the offense and can run it efficiently, which Kyle Allen can. So the AGGs of the world and the DeAndre Carters and the Isaiah Wrights and Steven Sims Jr. and Sammis Reyes and John Bates and all these guys that, you know, we are looking at, and some of those guys have locked up positions already, but we still are talking about these guys towards the back end of the roster. We can't fairly assess them until we get a guy in there that's going to be able to run the offense and hit these guys when they come open. So, Sammis Reyes, I thought, was open, but more importantly, he blocked his ass off. And Ron talked about that, and I saw it with my own eyes. There were at least 3 plays where I thought he was extremely physical, put a guy on the ground. He is a guy that's going to continue to get better with more and more reps. Repetition is key for him because he's never done this before. But to see how physical he was and to see the potential for him, because he does have athletic ability. I told you I was intrigued by the promise that I saw, but I felt like it was still so raw that he wasn't ready. But here's the thing, and I think somebody else said this on the overtime series. Because the other guys behind him aren't all that great, why not just go with the promise of Samis Reyes and continue to work with him on the active roster? He's the most physical tight end probably on the team. So you don't mind him being in 3 tight end sets where you're looking to run the football. And he's got more athletic ability than probably any tight end on the team. So why not give this guy a chance if Tamrick Hemingway and Ricky Seals-Jones haven't separated themselves? It makes a ton of sense to me. And you don't want to expose this guy to the rest of the league because someone else may be intrigued by him and snatch him up. So he's a guy that I think really, much like Jaret Patterson, may have put himself in a position to make this football team after the first preseason game. But we'll see. So let's get to practice today. The defense wrecked practice today. They were the aggressors. They were the alphas. You had multiple situations where there would have been sacks given up if this were a game, or at least pressures that would have led to the quarterback either making an errant throw or having to throw it away. You had deflections that led to interceptions or incomplete passes, plenty of those. And then you had 6, count them, 6 interceptions thrown on the day. I want to say 4 of them were thrown by Taylor Heinicke, 1 by Kyle Allen, 1 by Ryan Fitzpatrick. 6 INTs at practice today. Jimmy Moreland had 1. Trapp had 1. Jamin Davis had 1. All you Jamin Davis bashers out there, he picked off Fitz in the end zone in red zone drills. So Jamin Davis had 1. You had Torrey McTyer with an interception. Danny Johnson had an interception. And I'm forgetting somebody. James Smith-Williams had an interception as well. 6 INTs by the defense today. They were on fire and they ran practice essentially. Jaret Patterson and DeAndre Carter got a lot of reps with the first team offense today. The DeAndre Carter portion of that isn't surprising because he got first team reps in the game against New England. And I told you guys that. Jaret Patterson getting first team reps, however, is news. But I'm telling you, that preseason game went a long way in helping him make this roster. I don't think they're cutting anybody to have him make the roster. So I don't think it's coming at the expense of any other running backs. I think they're going to trim off fat at another position to keep this guy on the roster. I think they may be keeping 4 running backs now. That said, Eric Flowers played, and I already said this, so I don't really need to harp on this any more than I already have. Eric Flowers played the vast majority of snaps at left guard with the first team offense in practice today. Again, don't know how much weight to put into that because Ron was interchanging a lot of parts, including Sheriff and Rouye at practice today. And I was not impressed with Larson, the backup center, in the game on Thursday night. So I don't know. Ron's trying to get everybody else comfortable because you never know when you're going to be pressed into action. Let's get to the post-practice presser because I thought there were some really interesting tidbits that we were able to gather from Ron. Number one, Ron talked about the kicking situation. He is steadfast in his belief in Dustin Hopkins. I actually love, there is something admirable about his dedication to his kicker because you want to instill confidence in your kicker. The last thing you want is your kicker looking over his shoulder at all times thinking that I may be cut if I miss another kick. That said, this was a problem last year, and Ron has said this, and he's repeated this, so I know he believes this, that this is a process issue. Like, he has to get acclimated and adjusted to the new system that they have. They've got a new long snapper, and so that changes the dynamics of the whole kicking process, and he has to adjust to that. Ron said, "This is our kicker," okay? He's our kicker. That was his exact quote. He's our kicker. Speaking of Dustin Hopkins. So they're not bringing in any competition. That's translation. I'm going to translate everything Ron says for you guys. Translation, we're not bringing in any kickers to compete, okay? We believe in Dustin Hopkins. We believe in the process. We have a new long snapper. All of this stuff will work itself out. That's why we play preseason games. That's why we have practice. He'll be fine. Trust me. Okay? If you have trust in him, I have trust in him. You know I'm a D-Hop guy, but this has to fix itself. It has to correct itself before the season starts. This may be one of the things we may look back on and say Ron made a mistake. Remember last year we looked back on it and said Ron made a mistake by anointing Dwayne Haskins. And I still don't have any problems with what he did with Dwayne last year. Because we all wanted to see Dwayne get the reps. We wanted Dwayne to be the number one guy. And Ron wanted to see it too, to see if this guy could actually do it. So I didn't have any problems with what he did with Dwayne last year. We may look back on it though in hindsight and say, yeah, he made a mistake not bringing in competition for Dustin Hopkins. We'll see. Hopefully Dustin proves him right. I hope so, because you know I'm a Dustin Hopkins fan. I know the guy can kick. He's got a leg. But he's got to figure this out, and maybe it is a process. Maybe there are some issues there that they have to iron out. We'll see. All I know is I'm a results-based guy. And the results with Dustin Hopkins last year wasn't great, and he's not off to a great start in preseason. And you can't always just put it on the kicker. He didn't have a new snapper last year when he was missing. He's got a new one now. We'll see what happens. But Ron's not bringing in any competition for Dustin Hopkins. That's the first takeaway. Ron on trap. Okay? Trap. He said he is starting to settle in at cornerback. Translation. He's making a damn football team. For those of you out there wondering. He's making a football team. I watched the film of the game on Thursday. Who was down on special teams first every single time? You guessed it, trap. Okay, if nothing else, they are going to have him on this roster because he is the best special teams player. It's not close. It's Troy Apke, take 7 steps, and then you get to our next best special teams player. He's that good. They are not cutting this guy. Trap will be on this roster, and Ron talking about him settling in at corner is even more incentive to have him be on the football team. He's not as much of a liability at corner as we thought. That's what Ron's trying to tell you, and he's trying to get you to wrap your brain around the fact that this man's making a football team. Finally, Ron on Curtis Samuel. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. Ron says, look, he doesn't need a lot of preseason reps to be up to speed with the offense. And I've talked about that already. So I don't really need to, beat this horse. It's already long been dead. But he said, look, it's good to have him back out there, but we are confident in what this guy brings to the table. We know him. He knows this system. We're fine. He doesn't need a ton of preseason reps, but I think Ron would like to see him get out there. I've already said that. I think he'd like to see him get out there against the Ravens, even if it's only for a possession or 2. So they're going to take it slow with that groin. They are more focused on him being ready for September 12th than anything else, which I'm totally on board with. So we'll see what they decide to do with him. But remember how long it took them to get Matt Ioannidis back on the field? That was in training camp where there was practice almost every day. Now practice is going to be broken up by games and more rest time in between. So I don't anticipate this guy being back at practice in a full capacity until sometime next week, more likely than not. So we'll see what happens. But that is essentially practice from the day, takeaways from the game, and all the house cleaning that has been done. No more Kelvin Harman. He's been released. Curtis Samuel back active. Kyle Allen back at quarterback at practice. Thank God for that. And the defense was dominant today. No kickers being brought in for competition for Dustin Hopkins. And Sammy Reyes looks like a guy that is trending towards making his football team. Same can be said for DeAndre Carter and Jarrett Patterson. This receiver thing is starting to really shape up, and I think DeAndre Carter is throwing a monkey wrench in this thing. I really do believe that because he was on the outside looking in when this thing started. I still think they're keeping 6. That means my guy AGG would be on the outside looking in, which I thought was a very realistic possibility, but I told you he was going to make the team. I'm not giving up on him yet, but it's looking like they're keeping 6. And if they are keeping 6, DeAndre Carter is going to be that 6th guy. That's what it really feels like to me right now. But again, lots of time. If you're keeping 4 running backs and Jarrett Patterson's going to make this football team, you can't keep 7 wide receivers too. So I think it's starting to take shape. I really do feel that way. We'll see what happens as we near the second preseason game and what's going on in practice, who's taking the reps, and how things are breaking down. And then that second preseason game will tell a lot of the story, and we'll really be able to start projecting things out as we get closer to the start of the regular season. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Remember, I am a Washington football team fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington football team. Also remember that we're going to have another drawing for tickets for the Ravens game. Shout out to Bree and congratulations to Bree for winning the tickets to the Ravens game. I'll give you details later on in the week on how you can potentially get your hands on those Week 3 preseason tickets at home for the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll see about that down the road. But in any event, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll come back and we'll chop it up again on the Monday. More content coming your way. We're going to tear this thing up. All you need to know about Washington football team, practices, roster updates, things of that nature, all here on the Louie T Network. Until next time, get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
LouieTeeNetwork.